So yeah, hopefully everybody enjoys today's class. Just a very relaxing session. We'll be doing some summarized spoken text. Okay, so without too much more talking, let's get straight into it, shall we? I've got a set of recordings here. Now, I am playing you guys secondhand audio, so please let me know if the sound is not coming through clearly enough. Okay, I'm going to start off with our first lecture of the evening, and then I might choose a volunteer from the class and we can have a bit of a discussion about it. Let's begin. So this is going to be lecture number 1.
Aside from consumer electronics, artificial intelligence's greatest promise may be in transforming entire industries. The underlying technology making this happen is known in the tech community as supervised learning.
You have humans who are able to provide the training data for algorithms to then automate a task. So for example, a self-driving car knows how to avoid a pedestrian, knows how to stay in the lane, because humans have sat down with images taken from the front of these cars and said, this is a human, this is the lane which marks the edge of the road. And it's these thousands and thousands of hours of human feedback which ultimately enables a self-driving car to be trained to automate it.
Real time. The robots use computer vision to see the store shelves and are trained on thousands of images to complete their task.
You can imagine now you're starting to gather a very, very large data set of products. We use that to train AI algorithms to identify specific features. If we're successful, we blend into the background and your shopping trip means you buy 100% of the items on your shopping list instead of 80% of them.
Of course, robots that can roam the aisles at the supermarket or tractors that can automatically graze crops is just the beginning. Experts believe a profound technological shift is underway.
All right, that's it. How did we go with that one? So that was the first piece. Very interesting. I've actually never heard that one before. So the title of that one was Artificial Intelligence. Now, what we're going to do in today's class, now I could of course just tell you all the answers, but that is a little bit boring. So instead, I'd like to have a slightly more interactive class, and I might just be picking some people at random, or some volunteers, if you guys want, to discuss what you think that piece was talking about. So I guess I'll just start. Would anybody like to volunteer, maybe have a try retelling or summarizing that particular lecture? Don't be shy, right? It doesn't matter if you get the wrong answer. Anybody who wants to have a go? All right, our group is a little bit shy this evening. That's okay. I might just select somebody at random then. Let's see. Howard, would you like to have a go? You're the lucky first person on my list this evening. Don't worry, nothing scary. I'm just going to ask you, like, what did you hear in that particular piece? What do you think might be some important information? Howard, no? No luck? How about Reba? Would you like to have a try? So let me just... No, everyone's very shy this evening. Guys, one thing I always say, don't worry about making mistakes. If you want to find out what's going wrong with your performances, the best thing to do is actually make some mistakes on purpose. That way you can actually figure out what's going wrong. All right, how about this one? How about this? I'll just lead us through the first one, just as an example. Right, and you can kind of see whether or not, I don't know if you guys are taking notes at home. If you want to actually take part in the exercise, try taking some notes like you would in a real test. Okay, so just then we heard a piece about artificial intelligence. Now, if you were listening closely, you might have noticed that there were 2 different sections. In fact, 2 completely different speakers in that particular speech. So structurally, there are 2 different parts of this piece. And it was talking about artificial intelligence. Now, almost every lecture you hear is going to have like a main topic. In this case, we know artificial intelligence is the main topic, but what I always recommend is for you guys to think of a main topic not as a single word or word group, but as a full sentence, a full idea, right? So in other words, what was it talking about in terms of artificial intelligence? What was the main point? Okay, and in this particular piece, the general idea was how we, let's call it how we make artificial intelligence. Okay, now this is a full sentence, a full idea. Why is this important? Well, I want you to think about this, right? If I just say lectures about artificial intelligence, you can't really, there's no real follow-up to that, right? You know what the topic is, but you don't really know very much about the topic beyond that. However, if I say the lecture is about how to make artificial intelligence, it makes it sound like I'm talking about instructions, the kinds of steps, the things that we do, right? And this can logically link onto other parts of the particular speech. In this case, if I say, today I'm going to tell you how to make artificial intelligence, you're going to say, okay, go ahead, right? What are the different processes? In this particular case, there were 2 different steps that were mentioned, okay? So number 1, and I'm not sure how many of these that you guys managed to pick up, but the first one was humans, give computers instructions, right? Helping them to identify objects and goals. So something like this. Now, you might have chosen different keywords. I probably paraphrased a little bit from the original piece, but it was something along those lines. Okay, and the second one is computers automatically collect big data sets. Okay, now this is an example of a bit of a technical word. You might not know what a data set is, but basically the computers experiment and collect a lot of data and information, right? And then we also had kind of like a concluding statement, right? Which is, something like robots will learn to do a lot of stuff in the future. Now, I'm paraphrasing. In the original, they said something about shopping, right? Robots that can automatically do shopping. You should treat that as more of an example. The general concept is that artificial intelligence means that robots are going to be doing a lot of stuff for us in the future. Okay, and so that was kind of the layout of the entire piece. Now, what you see here, this is not an actual summarized spoken text. So in the test, I'm not going to just submit this, right? This is kind of like a version of notes. Normally, I wouldn't write this many notes, right? This is more just so you guys can follow. But this is like the basic content. These are the main keywords and stuff that you need to put into your actual piece. If I have this kind of information from this step, it's usually pretty easy for me to actually write a summarized spoken text, right? So here you can choose, you might want to use a template, you might want to freestyle, right? I'll just do an example of a freestyle here. So all I need to do is turn this into a paragraph, right? So I'll say something like the lecture talks about how we make artificial intelligence, right? One of the processes is to give the computer some instructions, right? The computer is told what its goal is, right? And given guidelines on how to achieve certain objectives. Right. Computers are also let's say, actually, let's say computers produce and collect big data sets over time, right? And then the speaker believes that robots will be learning how to do a wide variety of tasks for us in the future, something like that. Okay, so you can see here that mostly what I'm doing is I'm just taking the main points here and then converting them into full sentences. Now, the important thing is don't worry too much about grammar don't worry too much about spelling and things like that, right? Just make sure all the main keywords like data sets and objects, goals, and instructions, these keywords that make up your main points, they need to be in your final answer, right? After you finish writing, like this is what I would call a draft, that's when you can spend some time collecting more keywords, putting them in. You can fix up your grammar. You can make your sentences a little bit more fancy and high level if you want, right? But make sure just in your initial draft, all the main content is there, because that is where most of the marks come from.